the importance of I. And so my name is Judith Mendoza. I am a behavior consultant and educator, but also I am volunteering my time doing charity work by bringing autism awareness, autism education, and also mentoring for those who are adults and who have autism. And so we know that autism is something that is very difficult, a neurological disorder. And so I want to concentrate on giving education, imparting also of my knowledge of what my experience has been in regards to autism, and how I have observed that some are affected by it. And so I thank you for joining me today. And today I will be speaking in regards to self-control. Self-control and also volition or free will, consciousness, and also, of course, in relation, all of these, to autism. And so I dedicate my work, my secular work, and that is what I am doing today. I dedicate my secular work to providing quality education, mentoring, and guidance in matters relating to behavior, comportment, and education in regards to how we use our behavior in our social skills. So today I wanted to speak about, as I said, self-control. So what is self-control in combination with our consciousness and with our free will? Well, self-control, as the word implies that one will be having control of self, of our body, from our brain to our toes. And I am not speaking in regards to having disabilities, maybe having had aneurysms or a stroke or some other condition that may have caused you to have having no partial or having partial movement on your body and lacking movement on another parts of your body. And so that is not what I'm speaking about. The self-control that I am speaking about is the self-control that has to do with our free will or volition, that has to do with our consciousness. And it relates, or how it relates, or how it doesn't relate to autism, or how those in autism don't relate to it, is because they are using identity patterns. So those identity patterns, the person identifies as that identity pattern. But also, you will be surprised to know that our nutrition also has a lot to do with our free will or our self-control. Having control of self. And so, when you look in the dictionary, the word self-control is being described as the ability to control oneself. So in autism, the way this comes out, this self-control, the way it comes out, because the person who has autism is using identity patterns. So the person is identifying as someone else. So instead of being self-control, the person becomes controlling. And basically that is what we see. We see it in relationships, of course. That is when we're going to see it, because it is when we have relationships with others that we find out that we're getting along with someone or that we're not. And we do have, because we all have free will, volition, or we have innate in us the consciousness that we have free will, that we can direct our own selves. Then, of course, when we notice that someone is stepping over their boundaries, and then they want to have some control over me, over you, then we become defensive. We start protecting self. But with those who have autism, the matter of self-control has to do with controlling or trying to manipulate and control the pattern of identity, so that that pattern of identity can do as they want to do. Of course, this is due to the dissociative identity disorder that they develop as those with autism begin to learn how to communicate in the way that they learn to communicate. Those who are verbal, those who are non-verbal, in my opinion, those who are non-verbal or who have much difficulty, seem extremely shy, I believe that their upbringing has much to do with it, has much to do with if they are going to intake patterns of identity that it will make them pretend to become someone else mentally, because of course these things happen mentally. The person with autism is pretending to be this female, and when the person with autism does this, and this starts at a young age, the human who has autism, who has been born with autism, those who have autism are born with autism. And of course, depending on their nutrition, depending on the deficiencies that they have on their body, which will affect their brain, because we are one, we're not detached from our mental health and our physical health. We are together. So those who have autism, who are verbal, and they will vary in their cognitive skills, of course, and their understanding and the way that they will behave. But much has to do with their upbringing. If there are spiritual values, it will make a difference in the person associating themselves with someone else having scripted conversations, pre-planned, so that they can make it look like they can talk with others, because that's what happens. And they are very good, those who are verbal. And I have spoken about Frank, who has autism, who is close to me, who I know, and who I did not know that he had autism. What we noticed when he was younger was that he lacked self-control, but we thought, well, it's because he's young. He's a young person, and younger people have much more difficulty getting along with others or communicating with others, because even those who don't have autism have difficulty communicating. Sometimes it has to do with, and most of the time it has to do with, not with what we want to say, because I went through that also. We all go through a period where we have many thoughts in our heads, but for some reason we cannot get them out of our brain through our mouth so that we can speak it out. But for the most part, it has to do with fear. Fear of what? First, what we have to say, right? Fear of being rejected because of what we have to say. Fear of being scolded because of what we have to say. Fear to speak up because we will get someone into trouble. Or it could be also, including all of that, but also it could be fear because we are not self-confident. We feel that whatever we have to say has no value, and most likely this is something that those in autism create for themselves because of them looking as if they have fear of speaking and they have the need for someone to speak for them. And it usually happens that way, that parents, especially moms, like to help their children so that they can speak up. And they, not all parents do that, but for the most part, moms do that. I have noticed that. I have had experiences in regards to that matter. And of course, they are not helping that child. Why? Because that child is going to become an adult. And so if you, especially if it is a child who has autism and that needs to learn how to speak, you have to take into consideration that that child learns in a literal way, don't understand figurative language, has to be explained. He or she has to be explained why things are, because that child is not going to be able to understand the in between the lines. Even though the child may repeat whatever anyone else is saying, he or she is not understanding the implications of decisions others may make, or why they make decisions, or why they behave in certain ways. So they copy the person's identity exactly the way they see the person, including that the person is male or female. They copy the whole person. So they become, in their mind, mentally, they become, in their mind, at that moment, when they are under the influence of that identity, which is where self-control should be activated. But it's not in those who have autism, for the reason that they have to learn first what self-control is, and they have to memorize to learn to control their thoughts and their actions. So it is a matter of repetition. They, as all of us, use repetition as part of their language, as part of their speech. Repetition means emphasis. The same thing is for those who have autism. Just the difference is that, of course, the way that they understand information is different, and the way that they process the information is different. So if they are understanding only in a literal way, and they have learned, including a young child, this could be because this can start at a young age. The person starts dissociating himself or herself. Most likely, he or she will start behaving as parents, because those are the close ones that they have for them to maneuver family, their cousins, their uncles, their nephews. And so in order for them to behave, they will start behaving as the parents. Those are the first two, if there is a father and a mom. But if there is only father, then you will have a copy of that. If it's only mom, then you will have a copy of that. And so the ability to have self-control is not to be applied just as someone who has no autism. If your child has autism, you have to understand that your child's learning is different, that your child's learning does not include that your child will develop an identity of self. He or she will not. If the person has autism, he or she will not. There's a disconnect also from the senses in regards to the function, the cognitive, and how they can use their senses in order for them to keep focus, in order for them to learn, and in order for them to learn as self. For those who do not have autism, you see children, they start imitating their parents at a very young age. They may not understand why they're doing certain things, but they will imitate the skills of their parents. The skills. For those who have autism, they will imitate the whole entire person, including if the person is female or male. So if you have a male child and he has autism, if you do not teach him the proper way, and there are strategies to teach them, to teach those who have autism from an early age, in order for them to develop their own identity, because it has to be a manual process, develop the skills that they need in order for them to communicate. It is possible to attain them. It will take some time, because they only have one way of processing information. So whatever is lacking, you have to manually input it into the person. those who have autism have great understanding of knowledge once it is explained to them. But if it's not explained, if it's left to them, then they will find a way to communicate. And the way that they'll do is through dissociating themselves. And so that will become fragmented. You will see the person becoming fragmented. You will see the person having behaviors that are not appropriate. All of it, all of what you know that is described for those who have autism, all of that will happen because the person has not acquired the identity first, the identity that the person needs, understanding the use of their demographics, applying it to self, thinking from self, thinking as self, not through others, then developing the skills needed, not only for communication, but also how to learn skills. It is necessary. Usually those who have dissociative identity disorders apply each skill that they learn according to the identity pattern. So at some times, the person might be reluctant to behave in certain way or to do certain skill because he or she is doing according to different identities. And so when it comes to consciousness and dissociative identity disorders, of course, when the dissociative identity disorder, imagination takes place over consciousness. So it is important, yes, it is a very healthy thing to have imagination, but there's a limitation to it. If imagination takes over our consciousness, then we will not be functioning well in society. So a human, especially that one who has autism, must learn to have balance when it comes to having this use of imagination. I can have a lot of imagination, but what will happen to reality then? And that is something also that happens with those who have autism in regards to being conscious of self. And how do we maintain our consciousness? Well, we have to keep active. Being active is one of them, but also making sure that we have understanding of what things are in order for us to have application of it in our life, and then the reason why we want to make application of this. For some, this is a matter where you have different levels of values, and that is the reason, specifically and importantly, that is the reason why one will choose to have self-control. We have different matters where we can use self-control. For example, when eating, right? When we're eating, that doesn't affect anyone but myself. Taking care of my nutrition, having self-care, that has to do with my self-control, because I have to have balance, and in order for me to have balance, I have to have certain limits that I put for myself in order to take care of myself. Because as an adult who has cognitive functions, working cognitive functions, right? Because there are some who need care, and that is okay if someone else have to do these things for themselves. But if we have the ability to do so, to learn, then we should learn these things. And so self-control, it says, is the ability, the dictionary says, is the ability to control oneself, in particularly one's emotions and desires, or the expressions of them in one's behavior, especially in difficult situations. So self-control is related to self-discipline. Self-discipline, meaning as an adult, I will have understanding of my responsibilities that apply to myself, that I can do for myself. Because as a child, and by the way, self-control for those who are non-autistic, for those who are autistic, for all humans in general, self-control is a matter of skill, a part of our personality that we have to learn how to do. Children do not have self-control. One must learn self-control, and usually this is learned through discipline. When I was a child, my mother bathed me. She taught me how to brush my teeth. I had to take vitamins as well as keep active. And so my mother had to see, and my father had to see, that I was doing these things. And they make sure that I did. And so I had to also do my chores. I had to clean up. I had to help my mother. And so these were things that helped me with my self-discipline, my self-restraint. That is what self-control is. My temperance, my temperament, right? My moderating my habits. And so when you have parents that don't have that ability to discipline their children will lack this in their lives. And as an adult, there's no more that you can say, well, I'm going to guide you, unless that person wants to be guided, wants themselves. They say, well, you know what, I see something difficult with me, and so I am going to go into this class, and I am going to make sure that I take care of this flaw that I have. How many adults do you see doing that? For the most part, we are in denial. We say, that's not me. We can be violent. We can be yelling and screaming. We can be called the attention at work. And then from work, they send us to different therapies that has to deal with, or that deals with behavior, so that maybe we don't lose our jobs. So they go to these therapies because they fear to lose something. So they fear to lose the job that will continue to provide them money in exchange of their work. of their secular work, of their services. So they decide, well, I am going to go to this therapy because I don't want to be jobless, and I like the place I live, and I want to keep my car, and so they go because of that. But holding back from saying, well, you know, I really have issues with my comportment and my behavior and the way that I deal with others. Very few people accept these things. And so when it comes to improving our self-control, of course, it has to do with first recognizing that we lack it, that we should have been guided when we were children. We should have been instructed in this way by our parents. And so we should realize that if we didn't have self-control, if we had our parents allowing us to do whatever we wanted to do, run with our imagination with no stop, no one told us, look, this is not going to happen. We didn't have any limitations placed. We didn't have any self-discipline or any discipline so that we could learn self-discipline. We have to accept that we lack self-control when it comes to matters, when it comes to our behaviors, when it comes to our thoughts, that maybe we let our emotions go further than where there should be. And so nutrition, I have mentioned that nutrition has to do with it. Working at having our consciousness, it is a skill also, because just as how people can run to foods whenever they feel stressed, you know, because of anxiety, and basically also that has to do with malnutrition, the way that our anxiety is going to be, because there is, of course, a normal levels of anxiety that help us move forward, that help us take care of our bills, that help us worry about ourselves, worry about others. But you do something about it. You do something about the situation, and then you resolve the matter. And that is how anxiety usually helps us. Our nervous system is working properly. But if we are constantly having anxiety to the point that we have obsessions, that we can't control our temper, that we become just burst out on people, and we feel angry all of a sudden for no reason, we become violent even, then that has to do with self-control, but also our nutrition has to do with it. So it has to do with our mental ability, our thoughts, what's priority, and our nutrition. So for some, and I was going to mention that earlier, for some, of course, this matter of having values, different values will take us higher in regards to our importance and our accountability. So it is having consciousness of self as self, existing as the individuals that we are, becoming responsible for our actions. If my hands move, these are my hands from my body, from Judith, that is moving, and whatever else that I do or say, that is Judith's mouth that said it. Judith is the one who's doing it. And so whatever I do, my responsibility is that of me. I represent myself. So whatever levels we have of values is what will allow us to do that. And when it comes to it, and this is a subject that I'm going to speak about later on a little bit more, but today I am focusing or concentrating on self-control when it has to do with our metacognition, our cognitive skills, maintaining our imagination levels to a normal, healthy degree, not going away to the point that we are in a world within ourselves as if we are living in a movie, and then behaving in ways, doing things in real life that has to do with our reputation, who we are, but also because it is damaging. This can be very much damaging, especially if we want to have relationships with others, because of course we have to live in communities. We have to live with others. We are social creatures, so we feel that we want to communicate with others. So therefore, social well-being. This is what we want to have with others. And so the importance of my accountability, my responsibility has to do with myself, but also with others. So the levels of values that we have, and this is where spiritual matters have to do with the raising and upbringing that I was speaking about, and that some who have autism will not allow themselves to copy others in order to speak. They'll prefer to speak whatever little words they can and have the social interaction as much as they can have them. And most likely, if they have faith in God and they attend church or congregation, they have groups of people that serve as support, and so they find support in these groups of people. They have a conscience made up, developed, and they have built consciousness in regards to self because of these spiritual values that are higher than just having ethics of this is bad and this is good, according to imperfect humans who may at one point or another say, well, bad is good and good is bad. They can change and make the matter even more difficult for those who have autism because they are literal thinkers. So you're saying that you're doing good, but you're doing bad. That's confusing. Of course, it's not confusing to me because I understand that those who do bad are because that's their intentions. That's their tendency. And basically, those who have certain, and that depends also when it comes to spiritual levels. There are some who have some understanding, and they just follow and go with the flow, but really not really believing that there is a God. Because if we do believe that there is a God that is real, we have faith in these things, we have evidence that there is a God that is real, that He exists, then it's when our consciousness builds up in a way that you know that you do not want to displease God by my actions, by your actions, by our actions. And so the consciousness will develop. But of course, depending on what they're doing in your church and the church members, of course, this will make a difference. Just look at, and I don't remember the website right now, but the man who is taking the lead in helping those who want to detrans, because they are gaining consciousness in regards to their sexuality, that in reality the matters in regards to sex have to do with, if you have a relationship with someone, you're in a romantic relationship, and then you get married, and then having sex is part of the things that one does when one is married. But it's not communication. It has nothing to do with the skills. As I have mentioned before, I have hands, just as men have hands. So if I have to lift a rock, it doesn't matter if I have a vagina. If what matters is, can I lift it? Can I lift a rock? Can I use a hammer? Can I use power tools without injuring myself? Do I have enough knowledge in regards to how to use these things? That's what matters. It doesn't matter what my organs down there are. First of all, the knowledge have to be put in my brain. And then I have to be able to use my knowledge to remembering what I learned in regards to using these power tools. And as I have said, I have done many things. I have put sheetrock on the walls. I have plaster walls. I have paint walls and roof, and I have worked in roofs before, taking them out whenever we had to do work, construction work, reconstruction work. I have done all these things. I have put furniture together. Those are skills that one can have. It doesn't matter if you're a male or a female. Those are things that your hands you're going to use, and those are skills. So the person who has autism have to understand the difference. And so then understanding our feelings, making sure that we don't go to the imagination. Having these identity patterns do not help. It just confuses you more. If you want to learn how to speak to others, I have a course that I teach online, but then there are others who are also assisting in this matter. And of course, it's work, it's secular work. Right now, I am doing this as a volunteer work because I have this data, I have research, and I want to share this research in order for others to know what autism is in adults, because there have been great misunderstanding in regards to it. And so, understanding our feelings, right? So our feelings, we have visualization of our feelings, and this is something that I will be speaking about also later on. But for example, controlling our feelings. What are we feeling, right? So we have to learn how to identify this. In order for us to do this, we have to know what the emotions are. In order for us to know, it is very easy. We're feeling love, which it can be that you're accepting others, that you're joyful, that you're having admiration for others, that you're having trust for others, serenity, you're happy, and you're optimistic. And then the opposite of that will be that you feel contempt, meaning that you're annoyed, that you're angry, that you have rage, that it could be boredom, it could be disgust or loathing, right? So you have these feelings, but we also have to control them. What controls them? The knowledge, for me, because I have been the same in regards to, I have feelings too. I am a human. I smile a lot, but I am a human who have feelings. I have learned how to control my emotions. I have learned, and of course, this is difficult to do. It is a matter of what's more important. And this is where values are going to come. What values do you have? That is what is going to be the values that you have, especially if you have spiritual values, because you have the ethics, which are rules and standards that are applied to a situation, but really it might not be something that you believe in or that you actually practice in your life. Then you have the spiritual values, where you're using your Bible, and because of what it says in there, and because you have a belief and faith that God exists and is real, which is, for me, that is what my base is, that I am a spiritual person first. Then my basis for my self-control depends on this spiritual basis or base that I have. My foundation as a human, the person that I am, has been constructed and built from that foundation. So it is greater than pleasing humans, because it is based on pleasing God. So sometimes humans, because we can please humans, right? Sometimes we do want to please all humans, and everything goes. And that's when trouble comes, because there's no way. Because some things are just going to be against just general values that you know exist. And you're not going to be able to do it, or you're going to compromise and then be unloyal to your own values that you have for yourself, including, especially if you have to do with spiritual values, because as I said, there are levels of spiritual values that we can also have. Some are just by what people say and what people believe, and some, the highest, are what we believe that the Bible say, and we guide ourselves with what the Bible says. And of course, some have problems with that because they don't want to do according to what the Bible says, and then they will be having conflict. But if I am pleasing God, that's my thinking, if I am pleasing God, God knows better. It has been proven time and time again. So I will be faring better and much better if I have my foundation based on that. So my self-control has to do with that. So therefore, and one of the suggestions, and this was published in Forbes.com. It says 5 ways to help improve self-control and build good habits. First, remove temptation. It's related again straight to spiritual matters, and it has to do with the highest level of spirituality that you can gain from the Bible. It is the reason why there are over or close there are close to 1 million people who are now seeking help in regards to, maybe there is more than that, but the last time I checked, there were more, close to 1 million people that have watched the video of this man who had been transgender for some time, for many years. And he has the website, I believe it's Transgender Regret or Trans Regret. I have to look it up. I know I have posted before, because these are some topics that I speak about, because I believe, in my opinion, that those who are doing these things are having more difficulty understanding their own sexuality because of their cognitive issues that come along with autism. And in my opinion has always been that those who have autism, but also it is the opinion of the experts who have done studies, that those who have autism have the more tendency of becoming having homosexual habits, or being even transgender. And the reason is because of the way that they are capturing the information, the way their brain is connected, or because of the disconnect that exists. And then also because mentally they are forming for themselves identity patterns, and they are becoming either female or male in their imagination in order for them to speak as the identity pattern that they are using. And this is something that they have developed in childhood, because maybe mom speak for the child, as it happened in Frank's situation. And I can speak about it. I can speak about the situation because the situation applies to me in the relationship that I had with Frank, but of course not that it's related to me, because he has his own body. Frank has his own free will, and so he can choose to do whatever. But because no one knew that he had autism, and he wanted us to know, also his nutrition became to the point that it was very bad. He was pathetic. He was very, very, very slim, super slim, in 2015, when I started to see him again. He was wearing these guys. He was wearing these body suits that he puts on, so it's not just the nose and the lips that he changes, or that he's add on, and you can see him at 10-second songs. He is now trying not to do, which he's a male, so he has no business, he has no reason for him to be dressing up as a female as he was doing before. And the reason why he was doing before is because he's using that as props of communication. And he had been replicating everything that he had been in his environment exactly how he see it, because those who have autism are literal thinkers. So of course, the first time I saw him in one of the assemblies wearing a dress, I knew that he had a mental condition, which I believed he was crazy, of course. And the thing is that mentally, cognitively, he wasn't functioning well at that time, because he was very, very malnutrition. He had lost a lot of weight, and he was there with high heels, wearing a skirt, hair up in a ponytail, just like mom, standing up as mom, behaving as mom, also behaving as his girlfriend Kim, which is very slim also. And so there he was. I got close to him, and of course I deal with people who have this type of issues, so I got close to him just to make sure that observe him closely to see how he will behave from a distance. And in his mind at that moment, he was not Frank. And that's what he will do every time I will see him, because I had seen him the day before. We had the assembly, I believe. Yes, we had the assembly. I believe it was on a Saturday, and I had seen him, or it was on a Saturday that I saw him at night when he was at Bayside at Eclipse Band Live. And the next day, he went to the assembly, as he will usually do. I didn't know, but he was always there, disguised. And so I had seen him in the band, which was another thing that had to do with consciousness, with volition, with self-control, and with his autism. He will be there in the band as he was that day. I think it was a Saturday now, and he was there playing and everything. I will go and say hello. Actually, someone had to call his attention because he will pretend like he's talking to someone, and he knows that I'm going to him, but he will pretend like I'm just someone there from the audience, and no one important, no one that he knows. He will behave like that all the time. And so I had to go to him, and he will be talking all the time. He will find a conversation so that he will be talking all the time, and then someone will like say to him, look, someone is calling you. He will do that all the time. And the reason is he's behaving as mom. He's behaving as mom. He's behaving as someone else. But there he was behaving as mom. I wasn't understanding what he was doing. So then he decided to do more of these female things in public, like dressing himself up as a female. Then the next day, Sunday, I see that there is a lot of women that could be men at the assembly. I saw that. I even told my friend, I said, have you noticed that there's a lot of women in here, or men that look like women, dressed up as women, very tall and looking like models at the assembly? It was something unusual, but Frank has the money to waste on these things and to promote these things and to finance these things. So we saw a lot of these in the assembly, a lot of these tall women with high heels walking around. And at that time, I didn't even know men were turning themselves into looking like women. So I just thought, well, a lot of models now are interested in what the Bible says. You know, anyone can walk into one of our meetings, and Frank used to do that all the time when we were having meetings in the congregation place, physical place. And he will do that. He will use costumes and just walk into the meetings. And that is the first time that I started noticing that. That is the first time that I saw Frank doing that. And of course, this was very, very, very disturbing to me to see. It is a psychological process, and in regards to the person doing these things, not understanding why he was doing that. Why I didn't know that he had autism in 2015, and this was happening in 2015. I just saw him in the band, and the same thing had happened. I just saw him in the band, and then on Sunday there is him with a shirt. He's looking like he's basically mom. In his mind, his mom. He's a female. Most likely he imagines himself having breasts and having a vagina, and just imagining himself being mom, a female. And so what has happened is that, of course, since 2015 until now, there is a lot that we have talked about. And so he has created for himself a consciousness and a conscience. A conscience allow him, and of course, I am one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and so a conscience has allowed Frank to start learning what self-control is, because he knows that this is not something that he's supposed to be doing if he's a man. If he's a man, he's a man. He's not supposed to be putting himself that hairy chest, because I don't believe that he has many hairs like that. Those are hairs that he puts on his chest, and if you can see in some pictures, he is looking slim. His arms are slim, his body slim, and that's the way that he is. That's the way that he will always be. Even if he gets fat, he will always be having that body that way. It wouldn't be as what he portrays with this big chested man, dark, with hair. That is his dad. His dad is that way. His dad, whenever Frank portrays himself, he portrays himself as split. Mom and dad. So he also identifies as that, which was a problem for us because in the relationship, because well, the value things, you know, if you don't have no values, then just do whatever you want. Treat people however you want. Treat women however you want. So if parents are not inculcating values, and you know, you have someone to imitate that way, then that's what he did. That's whom he imitated. And then we have mom. You know, mom also, we all have imperfections. And so at times he will think that he's split, mom and dad. And so now he is understanding that, first of all, he's having consciousness of his own body, knowing that he has a penis. That's what makes him a man, besides all the other factors in his body, in his DNA, that makes him a man. He is supposed to be taking nutrition, including vitamins, and so he is supposed to be doing that. So that is what he is doing. And so he's eating better. He has gained weight for what I have seen. His body is slim. I see that he has answered the questions there. Some questions are not about himself. The majority of questions that he answered there at 10-second songs are not about himself. He's wearing a cape. he's doing all these things that he's doing, thinking that he's communicating a thought, but of course, he's not. Because whatever we do, our actions say about me and who I am. So whatever he's doing with his body has to do with that he's letting us know what he is, who he is, what he believes, what he does, what he thinks. And he's wearing a disguise. Sometimes, as I have said, you see him slim and sometimes you don't. I believe that that he keeps his hair off, very low, or he cuts it off so that he can wear the wig that he wears, and because that is the half and half, portraying a woman and portraying a man. But of course, he knows he can go to the point of making himself looking as a woman. That will be a distortion of himself and of his body. So because he has better understanding of consciousness, of self, of he is developing his own identity as the person that he is, the person that we know, the person that I know is legally, because I know his documentation legally as the person that he is. So even if he changed his name to become whomever he wanted to become, or if he legally changed his name to something else, then that is something that he did. Okay, but he still remains Frank to me. He still remains Frank to everyone else. And Frank, not his dad, Frank, the person, the individual that he is, in addition to his dad, whose name is not Frank. And so he's learning all these things. And what has made most of this self-control something that of importance to him, because I have learned that whatever else he was doing, he continued to do whatever, regardless of what I thought. But continuing the explanation, continuing that I didn't say it's okay. And there was a movie about a man, I don't remember the name, because really I don't care for those matters, but there was a movie, and these are some things that he also promotes, because he has the money to do these things. And back then he was thinking about that, or sort of that way, that maybe he imagined in his imagination that whatever he does, I will say, okay, that's okay, that's the way that you are. No, if I did say that, then where are my values? I matter too. So it is not his way. You can do whatever you want with your body and whatever you want to do with your life, but I also have that right. And so there's where the clash came, that he had to understand that it's not his way or the highway, and it is not my way or the highway. It is what God says for me in my life. And so he has to make the choice about that also. And he will have to continue to make that choice for himself. I cannot make it for him. I don't speak for him. As you can see, he was thinking that I was going to be answering questions or speaking for him, because I had gotten into the point that I was talking for him, not for him, but I was talking about things that had happened. So I was talking about myself in relation to the relationship that we had. And so, okay, I spoke about it. I spoke about me and what happened to us and what I happened to know about him. I wasn't speaking for him. And so, but he will behave in certain ways when I speak. And so he had to learn how to control that. Because it can't be that we can be in a relationship, but then he's rejecting me, or he's denying me, or he's behaving as other people towards me. So he's learning to have consciousness about that for himself, knowing that he's not none of those people, he's not none of his family members, that he stands for himself, and that whatever he does to me, he does it from him, from his standpoint. So how can he have or want a relationship with me if he's harming me, if he's doing bad to me, if he's mistreating me? Then you don't want a relationship. So you have to make a choice. And so self-control has to do with consciousness, with our free will. How are we going to use our free will? We have a choice. I have the choice of, I can say whatever I can say with my mouth, but whatever I am saying, I am listening to myself also. As I am speaking, I am listening to myself. I matter. I have to make sure that I don't make a moron of myself, that I don't embarrass myself. So therefore the word exists. And so I have to make sure that I hear myself. I count. What am I saying? What am I doing? And so it takes self-discipline. Also, when it comes to food, whenever we don't eat, we feel angry. And sometimes we don't want to do something because we feel hungry. And so food has to do with our self-control also. So taking care of self has to do with, I know that my body will malfunction, my brain will malfunction if I don't eat well, so I need to eat well. That is my responsibility. And so it is your responsibility also, as your own individual, if you're an adult. And then also, when it comes to, I mentioned for Frank, it has been that he has been making changes, and he is understanding in regards to, he's been learning how not to become obsessive, how to wait, how to take me into consideration, because at the moment he's doing this, and he's learning also how to develop his own identity. But he has to do all of that in order to have a relationship with me. At the moment he is unable to acknowledge me. But then also that has to do with self-control. So our thoughts are controlled by self. My thoughts are controlled by me. No one else controls my brain. I control my brain. So then having that understanding will lead me to have the understanding that having my imagination on all the time is not good for my health. It's not good for my learning. It's not good for my social skills that I want to learn. It is not good. It is not loving either, because I shouldn't be controlling others. I control myself. I can control myself. That I can do. But I shouldn't be trying to manipulate others because I want this identity pattern, and seeing people just as if they are patterns and not people. These are not just identity patterns that you move around like puppets, and then you want them to do what you would like to do. No, control yourself. control myself, my own emotions. And this is something that I will be speaking about next time also. And so today I wanted to speak about that, self-control. Self-control, and I have mentioned in regards to food, but also in regards to how we can control it. And one of the things that was mentioned is that we avoid temptation, right? That is the first thing that we should do. Then we should recognize that there is lack of self-control. We should recognize if our parents didn't teach it, we should recognize that we are lacking it and that we need it. Otherwise, we will be harming others and we will not have the relationships that we want. So we shouldn't be manipulating others also, because we want these identity patterns to be doing what we want to do. We can control self. I can control myself. And I should be learning how to speak. But not for those who have money, such as Frank. Frank has the money to waste. And what he does is, what he was doing a lot of before was having people repeating the things that were in his surrounding, in his environment, and the environment that had to do with us, with me and him. And so there's no accomplishment of anything by him doing that. None at all. So he has people going around me, repeating the things that he repeats, because he has the money to hire these people to do this. And he is asking them to repeat these things. So, for example, we used to say about Frank, as usually happens with those who have autism, most likely you know that because of how they behave, the family members will know and say, well, you're behaving weird, you're weird. We used to say that to Frank. You're weird. Because he used to behave in weird ways. At that time, when I told him that was in 2010, when I re-encountered him again, he was with his brother and a friend, and I told him that. I told him, you're weird. And so what he used to do after that was that he already had the people doing that. And so he will have people, like at work, he will have people just pass by me and say, you're weird. So because that's what they do, they repeat. So to him, he was just repeating something that I said at the moment that he decided to come and talk to me. Because at that time I wasn't speaking to him, and we were I was there standing by a Dennis, the food place, and he was coming over to where I was. He's smiling, and I'm looking at him, and I'm saying to myself, I'm not smiling, I'm saying to myself, there's Frank coming with his brother, and is that Frank? And I was thinking that I was by myself, I was going out by myself. And so he came over and he just smiled at me. He went and he sat down, This was in 2010, and then he got up, and he came over to where I was, and I usually wear sometimes when I used to go out before, some time ago, 2010, and I used to wear a pink piece of hair over here, and he looked at my hair and he said, "That's not your hair," and I said, "What do you care?" But he's not talking about my hair. That is what they do. He wasn't talking about my hair. He was talking that he was going to go to Bayside, and he was going to wear the wig, and he was going to be there, be in disguise with the wig and everything, as I found him in 2015, because he was planning to do for a long time. But at that time I was upset at him, and I wasn't talking to him, and so he said that is not your hair. But he wasn't talking about the hair. He was talking about the hair, but he wasn't talking about the hair, my hair. He was talking about the wig that he was going to wear. He was letting me know what he was going to do. That is what those with autism do. They speak by patterns. So he finds something that relates to what he's going to do. Because it's always about them. You think it's about you, but it's not about you. It's about them and what they want to do, or what they will do. And so I told him, "Well, what do you care about my hair?" And then he said something else. And then it's when I told him, "You're weird." And then after that, he will hire people, and the people will just come in, they look at my face, and they say, "You're weird." Of course, there were many other things that of our environment that he will repeat, and then he will have these people repeat, so that he multiplied this repetition thing. He will multiply it by everywhere I go. I mean, literally everywhere I go. It was just total harassment and harm done to me. Because imagine you hire someone to, and their job is to pass by another human being and tell them you're weird, or you smell, or whatever else I told him that had nothing to do with me, because I didn't smell and I wasn't behaving weirdly. I wasn't upset at times, I wasn't violent at times, and I wasn't yelling at times. He was doing that. And then sometimes he behaved as if he wanted me, and then he behaved sometimes as he's cheating on someone. He's behaving as if his parents, basically. Later on, I found out that he's behaving as his parents. So right now, he has understood all of that. And of course, one of the questions that I asked him was, "Why are you treating me this way if you want a relationship with me? You're behaving as this person, you're behaving as this other person." Then I noticed that he had different patterns of identities that he was behaving as. And so I asked him, in 2015, I asked him, like, have you noticed that you're behaving as this person, as this person, as this person, as this person? But yet you say that you want a relationship with me? Don't you see that what your conflicting, problematic behavior is harmful to me? You're doing harm to me, you're mistreating me. Because also at that time, beside the thing with the assembly that he went into West Palm Beach, that time with the high heels and the skirt and the ponytail that he was having, as his mom, because his mom put the ponytail like that, and he was behaving as mom, and he was behaving also as his girlfriend, Kim. And so besides that, he also had this thing that he still has on Facebook in regards to having a relationship with Suzette Fagundo, Fag Ondu, basically. Okay, so he hasn't undone anything yet. Basically, he has made believe everyone that he is in this relationship, and that And he hires people. He hired people in 2019 in December to go to his father's house with his brother there and all the family members, and he is making them believe, he make them believe that that's his life, but yet he want a relationship with me. So it can be both. It can be that and all of other things. It can be him and then all of these other identities. No, of course not. So he has to develop one identity, and does everything else. I have put the pattern, the correct pattern to follow. For those who have autism, you can follow, you can see, you can visualize. My name is Judith Mendoza. That is my legal name. My name also has been Judith Christian, but I am Judith Mendoza at the moment. That is the legal name that I go by. So it is not what was before. It can be both. It can be before and now. It's either now or now. Today, the present. I can live tomorrow because tomorrow is not yet. And I cannot stay stuck in the past, repeating what happened in the past and whatever ever else was doing in the past, because the past is the past. And then talking is talking, it's not actions. You can talk about something, doing actions about whatever you're talking is something else. So just the same thing with Frank. And of course, this has to do with his self-control and how he has to apply self-control. And so whatever happened, he was explaining, he's been explaining, he has this page that he doesn't want to bring down. He said to me some time ago, don't pay attention to it, when he looked like he was in different relationships. And those were some reasons also why I stopped talking to him. That's what had happened also in 2010. And so it does matter. It does matter if you wear this suit, make yourself believe, make others believe that you are with this woman, Suzette Fagundo. You hire someone to represent you, supposedly. You hire someone to whomever it is, you hire that someone so that person can impersonate your identity and call himself Frank de Jesus, and then you become Suzette Fagundo and go with a dress to your parents' house, supposedly have children, and you go to their house. You're confirming that you are in a, because this is what he's making them believe. He's not making them believe that he's a homosexual, because he doesn't want to be a homosexual. He knows that he is a man, but he wants to speak and he wants to explain everything. I had asked him to explain to his family that he has autism, not that he wears dresses. I didn't tell him to go confess to his family about these things, which are obvious. I have explained them to them, these things. I have explained, and you can clearly see what he's been doing in this profile. So, but now he wants to have a relationship with me. Then this relationship that he created and that he's confirmed as him having children with this Suzette Fagundo, and that this relationship does exist because he wants to replicate his parents' identity patterns. He wants to replicate his parents' life. That's what he's doing. And so if that's what he's doing, then that's what he's doing. Then he is not able to have a relationship on his own as his own individual, because in his life and in his mind, he's replicating mom, dad, and the children that they had. And that is what he's doing. He's having children just the same way as it happened with mom, that they had the older child, then they had the next child, the middle child, and the middle child, it seems to be a boy that he's dressing someone like a girl, and that will be him. Frank is the middle child, and then I don't know what the story is going, but that is reality to all of us. That is real to all of us. His parents believe that that is real. His parents are alive, living, and have lived that life. Frank is replicating that life and living that life and want to live that life also. But at the same time, he wants a relationship with another human. It can be. It can be that you're doing all of these and then you want a relationship that has to do with one individual and another individual. Two humans. And it is not alternative, augmentative communication. It is not. It is living life that way. That is the way that he is living. So he is doing that. That is what he's doing. He has autism. And he has money, which make a difference. And of course, the circumstances of each individual who has autism is different for everyone. It's not the same. And it has to do with upbringing. It has to do with values, spirituality, and nutrition. That includes taking essential vitamins, such as the vitamin D3, the B complex, C, E, omega-3, taking these, potassium, taking these essential vitamins. And Frank has been taking this. That is another reason why his behavior also has changed. Because again, as I mentioned, when we are hungry, when we are not well nutrition, our brain is not going to function well. It's not. If we're deficient in the vitamins that I mentioned and other vitamins, then we're not going to have function of our brain the way it should be. Especially for those who have autism, it's going to just be worse, make the situation worse. So there are 5 ways, according to Forbes, right? Remove temptation. We are not wired to consistently resist temptation. A study found that the way most people resist temptation is to remove the temptation. So that is what each and every one of us have to do. And finding a spiritual basis for me is the Bible. And of course, I had to have Bible studies that help us understand the Bible. As with everything else, once we have discernment and understanding, then we can make application of what we're learning. And so that is what Frank has been doing. He has been making application of what he's learning. But what happens with those who have autism? Because they keep going to the imaginary world of the identity disorder, then it has to be a constant repeating to him. And what I have noticed is that he immediately comes to. That will happen if the person has good nutrition. The brain will slowly repair for those who have autism. The brain gets better connections as we use it, as we discern information, as we understand information, and as we make application of the information. It takes practice. It takes reminders. If you are an adult and you're by yourself, there is ways that you can set up reminders for yourself. Then measure your progress. I have been measuring the progress for Frank. He has been doing very well. And he is understanding better what an identity is for self, because he did not have any concept of that before. Prior to me helping him out, guiding him, he did not have a concept of identity, because he was totally basing himself on others. It was as if it did not exist. And then now he's having consciousness. Consciousness meaning that you know of your existence, and as you become aware, you know that you're responsible and accountable for your actions. Basically, our consciousness helps us to do that. Consciousness of self. Consciousness that my brain, I control it, but I cannot control someone else's. I shouldn't be doing that. That is harm to others. Nor manipulating them, even though I could psychologically just pull someone here and there. I shouldn't be doing that, because that is harm. That is not loving to others. And so then learn how to manage stress. Nutrition will do a lot when it comes to our stress and our anxiety. Of course, it will not fix problems and conflicts that we may have, but we will be able to manage them, because we will feel better when we are not well nutrition, and that includes this having essential vitamins. Then we can have better control of self and our emotions, and how we are going to deal with situations and circumstances and other humans. And then prioritize things. What is priority and what is not? Choosing between those has to do with our free will, volition, our consciousness, and our self-control. It's learned. And then forgive yourself. If we make mistakes, we can go down, we can feel depressed, we can feel like failures, and we can feel like we're worthless, but it's not true. Don't let your brain lie to you. Don't let yourself lie to yourself. Sometimes staying away from reality has to do with this. We want to fly away from whatever is reality, or whatever our limitations are, or whatever we can do. And so we want to become someone else and just leave self failure away. And so it shouldn't be that way. Part of having self-control and building ourselves, our identity, is knowing that I have imperfections, I have limitations. I have to recognize that. And also, I have to recognize that if I don't take care of myself, I will not function to my optimal degree as I should be. Also, that being modest. Being modest means that I know my limitations, and if I know that my limitations are speaking developing skills of conversation, then I should seek help in regards to how to use language if I have the money to do so. But also, being modest will be that I will know that I have limitations and that it is not okay to lie. And if I do scripts based on identity of others, then that's what I will be doing, because I am taking someone else's identity and I am posing as someone else, and so therefore becoming an imposter, and that will harm myself even more, because I will feel even more worthless and as a failure, especially when using these identities make of myself a fool, because it happens. It happens. People will know. People will know, but people will not understand that you have autism. So you will just come out as compulsive or obsessive, mediocre, uncaring, presumptuous, manipulative, controlling. That is the only thing that will come out of that. And so then my reputation, if I did that, will be the worst, which will not help to my self-confidence. And so it is best to acknowledge, well, let me start little by little. Look at how babies learn how to speak, word by word, forming sentences. And then also, in communication, it is very important that we pay attention to what others are saying. When you are involved in the identity pattern and you become that person, you become blind deaf to whatever other persons are saying, and you are fully concentrating in your imagination in whomever you have mentally become, and you exclude everyone and whatever they're saying. And that is even worse than not being able to speak, because then you're portraying something that you're not. And so we have to take that into consideration. I wanted to speak about that, the matter of self-control, volition, or free will, the use of it, building a consciousness and how it relates to our self-control, it relates to our accountability, and also we have to keep in mind that children are going to become adults, and so it is best that that parents help them to become self-disciplined, to learn to develop an identity of self, to help the child learn the skills and make sure that that child understands the difference between becoming someone to do that skill and just doing the skill that someone is doing. There's a difference. Just learning what someone is doing, no matter what their sex is, what their sexual organs are. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're learning how to do whatever you're going to learn how to do from a woman or from a man. What should matter is, does the person knows what he or she is doing? Does the person have knowledge have experience? Can you learn the skill correctly? That's what should matter. The experience that the person has, not what organs, sexual organs they have. We don't learn nothing from there. The reason why we have sexual organs is to reproduce and make more humans. And of course, as part of the relationship that two individuals have, and so that they can enjoy each other. And just like how we enjoy other things, we can enjoy doing this with another human being. But that's it. That have nothing to do with business. That have nothing to do with skills. That have nothing to do with nothing else. All right, so keep that in mind. And also keep in mind that it takes time, and it will take more time if you have autism, but it can be accomplishable. So just keep trying. All right, so have a beautiful day today, and next Sunday I will continue with the importance of I.